Wine is an alcoholic beverage made from grapes. Winemaking can be traced back to the prehistoric period. Archaeological evidence shows that the oldest winery was found in ancient Armenia around 4100 BC. From there, it spread to Europe, North Africa, India, China, and most other parts of Europe within the course of 4,000 years. I decided to do this project on wine tasting because I enjoy tasting wine and have always been fascinated with techniques involved in the wine tasting process. This speech will educate myself and others on how to properly taste wine using four simple techniques: touch, using four simple techniques: look, smell, taste, and conclude. Before delving into the wine tasting method itself, it's important to have a general overview of what wine is and the numerous wine assortments that exist. So there are different types of wine. The types of wine depends on the types of grapes used in order to make the wine. The kind of grape used in the winemaking process is known as this variety. And if only the variety is mentioned on the label of the bottle, the wine is called a varietal, and it's named after the grape used to make it. That is signified using a capital letter for the first initial. Wines are broadly classified in two classes: red wine and white wine. A few of the commonly known varieties of white wine are Riesling, Gewürztraminer, Chardonnay, and Sauvignon Blanc. Riesling originates from German grapes from the Rhine and Moselle. They are usually somewhat sweet, with an acidic undertone to balance it out. Gewürztraminer is made from grapes harvested in Alsace, Germany, the US West Coast, and New York. It is fruity and carries the aroma of rose, peach, petals, lychee, and allspice. Chardonnay originated in Burgundy, France. It has a smooth texture with bold citrus flavors. It is fermented in oak barrels, which has a buttery undertone. Then we'll move on to Sauvignon Blanc, which is also of French origin and is grown in the Bordeaux district where it's blended with Semillon. It is lighter than Chardonnay and carries a herbal undertone. So let's move on to a few well-known varieties of red wine. So the first one is Syrah, which is also called Shiraz, and hails from France's Rhone Valley. It generally has flavors of wild black fruit, for example currant, with overtones of black pepper spice and roasted meat. Merlot is also a Bordeaux blend and is grown on the US West Coast, Australia, and other countries. It has a black cherry and herbal flavor, and the texture is defined as round. Cabernet Sauvignon is considered one of the world's best varieties and comes from the family of red Medoc wines of France. It usually undergoes oak treatment, which can give it a vanilla-tinged flavor. The taste is described as full-bodied but firm and gripping when young, but savory and may carry hints of black pepper or bell pepper as it ages. Pinot Noir is a red wine that is subtle and fresh. It has a fruity taste with notes of tea leaf, damp earth, or worn leather. The grapes used to make this variety comes from the great reds of Burgundy in France, and some are cultivated in Austria, California, Oregon, and New Zealand. Now that we have a brief overview of the different types of wines, we can move on to the wine tasting method itself. So, as previously stated, wine tasting can be broken into four steps: look, smell, taste, and think or conclude. The first thing to do is look at the wine itself. For today's presentation, I will be using a Barefoot brand of Chardonnay. The first step is to look at the wine itself. Now, in the absence of a proper wine glass, I'll be using a regular drinking glass. So, watch me as I demonstrate. What you should be looking for when you look at the wine is its color, the opaqueness, and the viscosity. Viscosity is also referred to as wine legs. So, the opacity or opaqueness of a wine refers to how dense the color is. Wines range in how translucent or opaque they are. So in order to judge the color of a wine, it's best to do so by placing it against a white background to see exactly how opaque or dense it is. As I'm showing you here, a white background, such as a napkin, paper towel, whatever is available at the moment. Wines with higher alcohol level contents tend to have more droplets of wine collect on the glass, whereas sweeter wines with less alcoholic content tend to have droplets that flow down the sides of the glass slower. This is what's referred to as the viscosity or the wine legs. To get a good sense of the wine, the next step to take is to smell it. In order to do so, swirl the glass before smelling it. What this does is it releases the flavors and the aromas, making it easier to recognize as you try to distinguish the different flavors and aromas that make. When smelling the wine, there are a couple things that we look for, such as primary aromas, which are the fruit scents that are present, secondary aromas, which come from the wine making process itself, such as the smell of maybe nut husk, cheese rind, and then tertiary flavors or aromas, which come from the aging process, such as roasted nuts, vanilla, and cured leather. Now, the third step is tasting the wine. Take a larger than usual gulp of wine and swish it in the mouth, like one would do with mouthwash. Then hold it in the mouth for a few seconds before swallowing. The swishing motion coats the mouth and increases the textural impact of the wine, giving us a stronger impression of the flavor and the feel of the wine in the mouth. When tasting wine, take note of certain things such as its acidity, bitterness, lightness, sourness, and its general taste. Also, the texture, which tends to increase with wines that are that have higher alcohol content and are riper, or tongue can detect tannins, which are described as the sandpaper or tongue depressing drying feeling that we get when we taste red wines. So definitely be on the lookout for something like that. The length of a wine is also another thing to look for when tasting the wine. Length refers to how long the flavor of the wine stayed with you after you taste it. So upon completing all these steps, create a flavor profile of the wine in your mind, which is part of what the concluding portion of the wine tasting is. Figure out what taste married in a way that was pleasing to your palate. Draw a conclusion as to whether the wine was balanced or not. Make note of any characteristics of the wine that stood out to you and why it stood out to you, so that in the future you can have this to compare to other wines that you tasted, other wines that may or may not be more pleasing to your palate. And that's a general overview on how to taste wine.